What up, nerds? My name is Leslie Smith. Welcome to The Nerdy Narrative, a channel where I talk about all of the things that I read, and today's video is going to be a non-spoiler review for a recent release called A Lonesome Blood Red Sun by David Putnam. This one was published by Level Best Books. It came out on October 17th, 2023, and I'm here today to tell you all about my experience reading it. How it is that I came to read this book is I found it on NetGalley. I saw the cover and I saw at the bottom where it said a bone detective novel. I read a few lines of the synopsis and I hit request and I was approved. Very excited. Now, one thing NetGalley does not do well, and I wish they would make it very, very clear, whether when you hit request, it gives you a little pop-up that says, are you aware that this is book 2, 3, 4 in a series? And then say, do you still want to request this book? Yes or no? That would be so helpful because this is the third time I've requested a book on NetGalley. It was not clearly marked on the cover or obvious in the book description. Like on Goodreads, where if you look this one up, at the top it says Dave Beckett #2. But I've read a lot of detective novels, and for the most part, they are written in a way, especially early on, where you can read them as standalone, so I decided to take a chance. When I sat down to actually start this book, I did look up the author since David Putnam is a new to me author. He has a pretty impressive work history in law enforcement, he and his family. He's worked in the narcotics division, he's been on some FBI task force, he's served on some violent crime teams, he was cross-sworn as a U.S. Marshal, and even spent 2 tours on a SWAT team. Looking at his work history, I thought this guy is gonna know his stuff. I'm going to get some accurately portrayed police and detective work in this one. Initially, I told you the cover is what snagged me for this one. The first line of the book description is what cemented the deal that I wanted to read it. Dave Beckett, a homicide detective who doesn't color within the lines, is regulated to the lowest job in the division and is known by his peers as the Bone Dick. The book description goes on to tell us this book is about Dave Beckett getting a call from someone out in the desert that their dog had brought in a bone, and it turns out this bone belongs to someone that Dave Beckett knows, which motivates him to get on the trail of this killer. Now that sounds like a great book, right? The problem is that book description, that does not even happen until the second half of the book. So you're thinking, well, what in the world was the first half of the book about? It's simply Dave Beckett helping other officers solve cases. It felt like we were aimlessly going from case to case. There was no real plot going on. I kept telling myself, surely this is going to start adding up and forming a bigger picture. We're going to lead into something big. And then halfway through the book, you flip the page and you do a time jump of 4 years. I thought that was such a poor choice because a character we meet in the beginning, in this 4-year gap, they disappear. And then also at the beginning, something that was very interesting is Dave Beckett was suffering PTSD from a case that happened prior to the book beginning, and the person, the killer, had gotten away. Okay, in that 4-year gap, he catches the killer. And I'm going, if we spend half of the book with this guy suffering from PTSD of this guy getting away, why would you skip over his capture? Why would you skip over the disappearance of somebody we're going to be looking for in the second half when we meet him in the first half? The only thing that I could come up with, and just stopping right here to reiterate, these are all of my opinions. This is my experience reading this book. My experience was, okay, the author couldn't figure out a way to connect all of this, so he skipped over what he couldn't figure out how to write. That's how it felt to me personally. None of the characters, the main one included, were developed well at all. Just wasn't enough information given to engage the reader to care about the characters. This book takes place in California in the San Bernardino County desert. I think I pronounced that correctly. I had to say it slow. There's a lot of R's and N's in there and I have trouble saying those together. But it takes place in the desert and the author makes sure you don't forget it. In fact, the word desert is used 87 times in the first half of the book. Surely you can think of a another way to describe this setting, this atmosphere, without using this word so much. When you overuse a word, it starts pulling me out of the story, and I'm counting, and then I'm looking up how many times you use the word, and that's just not ideal when you're pulling your readers out of your story. The writing style overall did not work for me. It was awkward, it was choppy. I hung in because this was a NetGalley book. I didn't want to DNF it, and I just kept thinking, this is gonna get better. I'm gonna hit that one chapter that ties it all together, and it's just gonna be this big reveal, and I'm gonna be impressed, and that just never happened. And if you are interested in reading this one, I would absolutely recommend getting it from your library. I looked it up to see if they were going to have an audiobook available. There was not one listed at the time that I looked it up, which was the beginning of October. Readers that I think would enjoy this one would be hardcore true crime lovers. If you're one of those people who watches every single Netflix documentary on serial killers or detective stories, you've watched all the detective shows, and that's all you read, you would enjoy this one. It has a lot of cop jargon in it. So much so that I feel it's a little over the top, but as I always like to say, every book has its reader. I'm just not the right reader for this book. My goal is to give enough information. While it is my opinion, hopefully what I say is something you can say, hey, she doesn't like those things. Those are all the things I like. And then you'll know this is one I definitely need to pick up. Guys, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for listening to my experience reading the newest release by David Putnam, A Lonesome Blood Red Sun. Unfortunately, this is a series I won't be continuing, and since I did not get along with the jargon and writing style of the author, this is an author I will not be continuing, but perhaps it's one for you. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next one.